Hi y'all, I'm Rachel and thank you for joining me today on my channel. As you can see, I have a little bit of a new setup. Let me know what you think. But to go ahead and get right into it, we're gonna be pinning plastic bottles versus glass honey bottles against each other, and there is a very clear winner. Now, I will say as a little caveat that we offer both glass and plastic to our customers, and not only do we just offer them, they are both purchased. I would say at different rates, but let's go ahead and get right into it. So I'm really going to be talking about two areas. One of them is perception and the other one being practicality. And as far as perception goes, we can go ahead and start and talk about glass. I think that glass comes off as really nice. It is kind of a cottage type of way to package any type of food. It also has a heavier weight, so you can pick it up and you feel it, and it feels quality. The tops that go on it are usually metal, so you can get like a silver color or a gold color. It just is really beautiful, and again, it just looks really great as well as feels really great in your hand. In comparison to a plastic bottle, which we'll get into, the glass bottle, it actually is a little bit bigger just because of the thickness of that glass. So putting them right beside each other, it just presents exceptionally well. But as far as plastic goes, when you look at it, it's, kind of the contrast of what we just talked about with glass. It doesn't present quite as well. I think that there is, an argument to be had that somebody who is picking up a glass bottle or a plastic bottle of honey might see that as, the winner right off, just because you can pack and go and take that anywhere. And that'll transition us into the practicality part. I think perception is, just right off the bat what you're going to see. But when we get into the real uses of it, this is where the two begin to really diverge on, what really would make sense for most users. But we're also going to talk about what that would mean as a purchaser. Again, there's a clear winner. So as a purchaser, you're going to be thinking about, what is this going to cost me? Glass definitely costs more in any way that you figure it, whether you're buying from a wholesale, manufacturer for glass bottles for honey, or you're just going straight with the route for mason jars. It's going to be more expensive, and it's also going to be more expensive to ship those bottles to you if you're not actually going to the store to purchase them yourself. So that's a downside for the glass. And along with that, storing the glass bottles needs to be done in a way that they aren't going to break against each other or on other objects. So when they come in a box, it's typical for them to have, cardboard dividers between them so that they don't bump into each other. And it's really important to keep them stored in that manner so you don't have any accidents. So it will require a bit more space in comparison to plastic, where if you buy them in bulk, it'll be like a bag of plastic bottles inside of a big old cardboard box, and you can tuck that away really anywhere that you'd like. You'll have a couple hundred or several dozen, depending on, how much honey you're going to be bottling. And that really doesn't have the same constraints that a glass would as far as storage. And so if we're talking about the complete components that you'll need for bottling, including the cap, if you go with glass, you're going to have to need some sort of tamper-proof seal. So that's another item that you'll need to purchase. They're just like little plastic films that go on top of that jar, and then you use a heat gun to seal them. There may be other methods, but that's how we do it. Each individual one by hand. It can be a lot. Whereas the plastic bottle tops, you can choose a variety of colors, so you can really brand your honey the way that you want to, whether it be, I think a typical is like yellow, black. There may even be blue. There's definitely red, but you can do a little bit more branding. There's a lot more liberty with the color tops that you'd have on a plastic bottle. When talking about that, we just talked about heat sealing with a glass. The plastic bottles, they'll go ahead and have like a pressure seal on top of that. So the second that you put that cap on, you're done. You don't have to worry about anything else. And it is significantly easier to bottle those, I will say, as a user of both glass and plastic, whenever I'm bottling. I prefer to bottle the plastic. Now, that's with one exception. The plastic bottles have a more narrow neck. So to bottle that, you have to like either put the bottle right in the spigot and pour that way, versus like really any other jar, especially if you're choosing a glass mason jar. It has a wide mouth, so there's less room for error. Once you've spilt honey all over yourself in the bottle a couple of times, you'll be able to really appreciate having a bigger neck or head on a bottle. Now, use. This one, I'm going to refer to my notes because I wrote down a lot of points. And I think right off the bat, we've already talked about shipping as receiving the bottles or jars. But if you're considering shipping out, whether you're using an online platform, or have friends and family that you're wanting to send a gift to far away, plastic is going to be the way to go. You're a lot less likely to have any breaking of that bottle. The tops can be a little bit flimsy, so I would suggest packing heavily around the plastic top. But as far as shipping expense, even you're going to make out better typically with a plastic bottle, just because again there's less weight to it. So as far as practicality goes, well, a plastic bottle wins. Ultimately, you're trying to sell your honey or provide a product that you have to someone you know and love. So keeping them in mind is where we're kind of headed with this. So for the rest of this video, I'm really going to focus on end user practicality, and a very easy one to recognize as a benefit is breakage. Glass might not be the safest option because it's very easy to break. Also, if you knock that bottle over, even if you're just clumsy like me, if you just knock that bottle over on accident, that can be a big mess really quickly. Whereas a plastic bottle, it's a lot more user friendly in that aspect. You squeeze out as much honey as you want, and that's the end of the deal. If you knock it over, you may get a little spillage because it's not like, I don't know, I guess entirely spill proof, but you're talking about just a little hole where honey's going to squeeze out of versus like a big open jar that also has a pretty high likelihood to break. That's, I think, the biggest benefit to having plastic. I'm doing a comparison of, just squeezing honey into whatever you need, or a child doing that, deciding it's not sweet enough, and then just making another little squeeze. There's no double dipping of any utensils. You don't have to worry about cleaning, your honey dipper after that. I just think it's a lot easier to be able to use, plastic squeeze to get out the honey versus doing a dip into a glass jar. And I think that most people would find that true as well. And one of the last things that I'd like to talk about is raw honey crystallizes. So when you're thinking about, heating up honey in a plastic jar versus a glass jar, considering what your end user will want, I think really has more weight to it than we as purchasers may realize. As somebody who uses honey in my coffee every single day, I don't mind having, a little bit of crystallized honey. That just doesn't factor into what I'm thinking about as I'm eating it at all. However, if I were making like a honey butter or something, I wouldn't want crystallized honey. But I know there's enough people out there like me who are thinking the same thing. Additionally, with crystallization, it's a lot easier. When we talked about the glass bottle having a bigger neck to it versus a plastic bottle having a smaller neck, it's a lot easier to scoop out crystallized honey from a glass jar than it is from plastic. And I know this from experience. It's like significantly harder unless you're going to heat up that bottle or container.
And I don't mean to make this out to be like crystallized honey is the absolute worst. Really, all you need to do is either eat it fast enough or make sure that you educate your customers on how to decrystallize it.
In the end, I think it really comes down to, what you're comfortable with as far as what you would like to purchase, and then thinking of your end user in mind. So to wrap this all up, I would recommend starting off with plastic. I use both. I am somebody who loves both for different reasons, But when pinning them head to head, the plastic just wins. It's easier to ship to you, to a customer. I think the usability is much more, friendly for all sorts of people in all sorts of situations. With the plastic, you can brand it in a much more unique way if you want to. And from my experience selling both in glass and plastic sells better. It just does. You will exclude a certain market if you don't sell in glass, but that's okay. Not everybody has to be everything. Maybe get, your starting stock of plastic bottles and then a handful of glass. That's a nice way, especially around the holidays, to kind of throw something new out there. That's my 2 cents on it. I really appreciate you watching this video all the way through. If you found any value from this, please like, comment, and subscribe. I reply to all comments, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you are purchasing or selling honey, I'd like to know what you use. Again, thank you so much for joining me on my channel. And don't forget, in a world where you can be anything, y'all be kind. You get a kid that uses honey, stirs up I guess they wouldn't be drinking coffee, but, cider, like a Christmas cider maybe. Oh, no, that's so weird. Why did I say that? Ooh.